Well, welcome back. Welcome, Ewan High Prom School Kings and Queens, to the Hardcover Hooligans podcast. My name is Mac. With me, as always, is Danilo. And Danilo, I have a question for you.
Ask away.
This might be a morbid question, more on the morbid side, but if you were trying to get revenge on somebody who never did anything wrong or bad to you ever, and you had to do it in a public forum like this, and you can't do the bloody bucket thing, what would you do?
Something poop related immediately comes to mind.
I think so. That's what I was gonna say. I was actually is pee and poop. I think blood is insane, but I suppose it makes sense with the menstruation. That Chris Hargensen.
Yeah, I did not know how they got the blood. It makes sense, but it's crazy that they did it the way they did. That may be the craziest part of the book, frankly.
I also think that's
in a book of someone with mental powers.
That whole section is very. This is Stephen. Okay, well, so we're reading Carrie by Stephen King. And that whole section is a very kingy. Like, if you liked or were affected by that section, boy, have I got 80 other novels for you. So yeah, we're reading Carrie by Stephen King. Famously, his first book that he threw in the trash and his wife dug out because she liked it and wanted to know how it ended. Shout out Tabitha King. Without you, we would have no Stephen King. This book is pretty famous. I honestly, this might just be in the circles I run in. I feel like when I bring up Carrie, people are like, "Oh yeah, the movie." And this is my reference point for the book. I've read the book before. I've never read the movie. I've never seen the movie before. I don't know how I've managed to avoid that one, but
I never have either. I mean, I knew it was a book by Stephen King, and the only thing I knew about it is she gets dunked with blood at the end. And I think that's what almost everyone knows about this. Like, because I was reading this, and my partner Shelby was like, "Oh, is that the one where she gets blood on her at the end?" And I said, "Yes."
Yeah. And John Travolta plays Chris Hargensen's Billy. What's his name?
Oh, really?
Yeah, John Travolta plays him. Sandy, I think we have to slit this pig's throat. Pretty fucked up what they do. So this is Carrie.
Yeah, it's super fucked up.
Published originally in 1974. This is the book and I think film combo that brought Stephen King into the mainstream. I do not think this is wholly indicative of the rest of Stephen King's style. I think that there's some stuff here that he plays with that I think the book that really, if you just read, if you picked up any Stephen King book and then picked up Salem's Lot, which is his second book, you could draw a lot more comparisons. This one is not.
Okay.
Because this book is not a horror novel. I'm just going to say that. People are like,
no,
Carrie is a horror novel.
Scary.
It is not even a little bit at all. And that's what actually
unless you think menstruation is the scariest thing that's ever happened.
I think it's a supernatural thriller is maybe how I would categorize it.
Or like social commentary. Like, I feel it's like more of a stronger social commentary than I think even a supernatural part of it,
Also, one of the reasons Stephen King abandoned this book was because he wrote the menstruation, the scene where Carrie gets her period. I'm having a hard time talking today, and good time to record a podcast is when you're having a hard time talking. And he wrote that and said, "I don't know what the fuck do I know about any of this?" and threw it away. And so, with the help, Margaret Atwood, in an edition of this book, in the newest edition of this book, there's like a foreword by her, and she's like, "Boy, is that I'm not a woman. I've never been a high school girl." Apparently, pretty horrifically accurate bullying, and that is partly thanks to Stephen King's wife, who helped him a lot with all of that stuff in the book. He was also a teacher, I think, at the time. So he saw bullying all the time while he was writing it.
I mean, especially 70s bullying. I didn't grow up in the 70s,
no.
But it seems like things have gotten pretty easy peasy for high schoolers recently. Like, you watch any media that's concurrent with the time, like anywhere between 1950 and 1980 seems like a pretty horrible time to be in high school, where people can just
all
kill
angles.
you and get away with it, I guess.
She's having her period, and then the gym teacher comes up and starts like beating the shit out of her, like slapping her around. It's like, stop having your period.
Which is crazy to say. It's people think it's realistic, or like, I guess I mean, I'm also not a woman and was never a high school girl. I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
So just like thoughts up front. Perfect is a big word, but I think this is a little perfect book.
Really?
I do. I love this book.
Huh. This may be the first book we ever disagree on. I didn't care for it too much.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, I think there was a lot I think I liked, but I think the things that I didn't sort of distracted me from that. I haven't read a ton of Stephen King, but the criticisms I've heard leveled at him and my experience reading the other Stephen King novel I have partially finished was 11/22/63, which I know is not like his like biggest work. But I felt some little Stephen King things in here that I'm like, maybe not. You know,
so what are those things?
I wonder if some of them is like the writing craft part of it. I think the it being iconic, like the whole Carrie situation with the blood and the bullying and everything feels very Stephen King, like him having a lot of empathy for this character, and you were like exploring
especially for
that,
like a kid.
and like
that's like
right.
A big thing with Stephen King's works is horrific things happening to children involving children.
Sure, and sort of like I really like I mean, I don't know if it was explored too much, but like how sort of everyone in this town sort of failed this girl and then suffered the consequences of that by having it all burned down. I think some of the plotting was really rubbed me the wrong way. Some of the, I mean, like, I don't know. I'm torn between, I'm sure this has happened or something equivalent like this happened. On the page, it feels almost overkill or like misery porn a little bit. I think some things with like the mom and especially like at the school with Carrie. I don't want to like cancel out other people's like experiences or if they really were. Because I'm certain worse bully things have happened than what happens in this book. I think some of it felt a little too like dialed up for me for the sake of being for the sake of like evoking pity, you know.
Sure. I think I found all of that totally believable that they would like go to her for this because I think you have to remember that she is not the impetus for Carrie getting bullied is that she's always been sort of bullied and a social outcast. The inciting incident for this is that she gets her first period at 16, which is not usual. And I know from at least my experiences with it can be very sensitive. I find that when Miss Desjardins is talking about how like she was so mad that Carrie didn't realize what was happening, I found that super relatable. I've never been in this situation, but like I've trained people in at jobs, like something as jobs I didn't care about at all. And when somebody is not getting it, then like you deeply understand it. Like your first thought is like, how the fuck do you not get this?
Right.
But then you have to remember that, oh no, I've experienced this before. There was a time when I didn't get it. Just like the gym teacher realizes, oh, she has no idea. It's not that she's being like, oh, I think the phrase is literally weak woman. She's like can't stand weak women or whatever. It's that she has no idea what's happening. Because when Carrie understands what's happening, she like takes charge of the situation. She goes home and starts using her mom's. She like steals her mom's maxi pads. But I think that I find it also compelling because I love the character of Sue Snell. I think we could talk about that. So Carrie gets bullied. She has her period. They're throwing like wadded up. She gets her period in the gym shower at school.
This is the opening of the
shower.
book.
Yeah, this
we're starting. This is from the beginning.
And she's getting bullied. Things are being thrown at her, and one of the characters being thrown at her is Sue Snell, and she's just one of these students, but she claims to be she's like, I'm not like those other bullies, but she was bullying Carrie, and so the reason why Carrie ends up at the prom is because Sue Snell asks her boyfriend Tommy to take Carrie to the prom as a sorry. And while they're at the prom, Tommy and Carrie sort of maybe fall in love, but it's very, very short-lived.
Or they have like some sweet moments.
Yeah, it's very nice. I love that stuff.
Yeah, me too. I liked it a lot.
While this is going on, now this is important to know. If I'm not mistaken, Stephen King was bullied by greasers as a child.
Okay.
If we keep reading Stephen King, you will notice the greaser bully character is in a ton of it.
Well, because in this book, it took me a little off guard because he's not even someone who goes to the school.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, he's like 19.
Just like some guy. He's like not even college. He's like, I need to show this high school girl who's boss.
Yeah,
it's very out of left field. And then Stephen King like takes 3 pages to describe his car. It was very like, oh my God.
Billy, who is this character we are introduced to as a greaser, is dating the popular girl of school and also like top bully mean girl, Chris Hargensen. And together they hatch this plan where they famously dump 2 buckets of pig's blood on whoever. Billy is okay with it being whoever the prom king and queen is, but Chris is going to sabotage the voting to make sure that Carrie White is in front of the whole school and she gets pig blood dumped on her. Now,
because Chris Hargensen can't go to the prom
right,
because she got detention for bullying Carrie earlier.
Now, what nobody knows except for Carrie, pretty good bullying plan if you don't know this crucial piece of information, is that Carrie has latent telekinetic abilities that she, throughout the novel, learns to control.
And that come up during times of intense periods of shame and stress and fear.
She has the most God-fearing mother alive. She's like always praying and beating her. She has this terrible home life. This is really classic King stuff.
Yeah, the mom is like, you can say like religious nut, but like I would say like mentally 10. Ill.
Yeah.
Like, and then that is expressed itself as like religious mania.
We get a bunch of her backstory.
Really traumatized, yeah.
She was like living with her mom and her stepdad and was like, you guys are living in sin. And she like kicked her out. Yeah. This all stems from like some... The mother, Margaret White, has not had the easiest life either. And instead of, she turned to this like religious fundamentalism to fuel her worldview and get over it. She feels immense guilt revealed in like the last... If it's not revealed earlier, revealed in the last like 20 pages that she had like premarital sex with Ralph, Carrie's dad, and it like drove her to insanity. And she keeps repeating it. She's like, they're going to smell the blood on you and take you to the roadhouse, and you don't know what'll happen in the roadhouse parking lot. And everybody has a very complicated, awful relationship with like sex in this book. Chris and Billy's sexual relationship is just awful and very uncomfortable. I mean, I'm saying that like I don't think it's poorly written. You're not supposed to read this and be like, man, those 2 kids. You're supposed to read it and be like, holy fuck. These people are messed up. Every time they have sex, Billy's like, maybe this will be the time I just kill her. And it's like, okay. Jesus fucking
And like Chris
Christ.
And some other things, like specifically, they're like, oh, I want to have sex with him until he does X, Y, and Z, and like all that.
And I think what people know that Carrie gets dumped in blood and like kills some people. I don't know if everybody knows that she destroys an entire city full of people.
Right. And that was something that I didn't know. And I think going back to another like criticism or something that like, I don't know, rubbed me the wrong way or I felt was like really overkill. I think from the beginning, what I didn't realize or didn't know, this book is like broken up by these interstitial like
yes, it is,
documents and letters and like police reports,
newspaper clippings. There's like academic journals written all post the prom night event, as they call it.
Right. And like talk about like Carrie's like psychokinetic abilities, but most of the point of them is to be like, something bad happened on prom and it was horrible. And at some point I was like, okay, I get that something bad's gonna happen on prom night. You don't need to give me another one of these things. I think some of it is like padded out. I think the prom night is the whole second half of this book. I didn't think it had to be that long. It felt a little long to me.
I think that's something that is not a King. So the Kingian move to foreshadow events in that way is
ad
present
nauseum
in all of his books, but they're not like this. I think this is the first. I mean, it literally is the first swing at this kind of thing.
Sure.
The perfect example is at the end of a section. There's no chapters. There's 3 parts. There's like page breaks, but there's no chapters. And at the end of one of the page breaks, Tom, it's like from Tommy's POV. It's written in third person, but Tommy's POV, and it's like, whatever. Tommy was having a great time. He would be dead within 3 hours. Sure. That is what Stephen King employs really well in later works. There's like a moment in The Stand where a character, it's mentioned like, and long after he was dead, this other character remembered this moment, and you're like, what? This, huh? So then you know the whole, and that happens like right at the beginning, so you know that this character is going to die. And I think those are really, really, really effective. I do think that unless it is maybe a little bit like
I think it's effective
hokey.
When deployed with a deft hand, not like every document being like, oh my God, what happened on prom night to the hundreds of people? And then you're like, I don't know how it happened or what happened, but like...
I do think, though, that the one that you're referring to, The Shadow Exploded, is the name of the book in universe, is sort of supposed to be annoying and like...
okay.
Like, what do you call that? Like
sensationalized?
Thank you, sensationalized. Because every time it's referenced by other works, they're like, I can't stand that Shadow Exploded book that like people are reading. So I think whenever that brings up, it's supposed to be like you reading like tabloid newspapers as opposed to... Because you get the actual academic pieces or like the interviews, and I love the interviews, they're like, like something not sensationalized and crazy happened, like something deeply traumatizing and sad happened. And I think I find the move effective. I love that half of Carrie is not like happening now, but is told through like newspaper clippings and academic journals and stuff.
Interesting. I didn't like that. I didn't particularly like that. I liked sort of, I think, what it did, like especially later because then like Sue Snell, who'd survived this event, like it's those flashback things sort of become about her and her guilt around the situation. And I thought that was very interesting. Like, I think when it was focused on like the characters rather than like some random scientist being like, is PK real? And how could Carrie White and the recessive genes of the mother? And like, I didn't care about any of that garbage.
Yeah. I do love my favorite one though, interstitial part, is the ending of the book where 2 completely unrelated people seem to be in correspondence writing letters, and we learn the end of the book, people are like, nobody else has ever reported. Throughout the whole book, the newspaper clippings and whatever are saying, listen, other people have this gene, this telekinesis gene. If we do not like study it and learn about it, prom night is going to happen again all over the world. This book, The White Commission, would have you believe that you don't have to worry about it. And then you keep getting parts of The White Commission, which were like investigating the whole thing, and they're trying to sweep it under the rug. And so by the end of the book, before the last little bit, you think that, you know, the government has wiped out, like nobody really knows if, you know, Carrie White really had telekinesis or whatever. And then in the final bit, it's two completely random people, halfway across the country writing letters to each other saying that, yes, like, oh, my daughter's been doing that funny magic thing where she lifts up pebbles. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, no, it's going to happen again.
See, I thought that was a little hokey. I wonder if it's just because, like, that happens in a lot of media where, like, the story ends, but then, like, there's a kid who has the power too.
Yeah. I mean, you have to remember, when you say a lot of media, we're talking about Stephen King
50 years ago. Like, right, exactly. No, I know. And it's one of those things where, like, is this a new thing, or, like, it's been done so many times because of this? Although this only really occurred to me now, like, they're coded as, like, low-class people. And I think that's something super interesting about this, is, like, Carrie is this, like, downtrodden low class person, like, sort of who's slipped through the system, and that is something that these powers sort of maybe happen to those sorts of people.
I mean, I think this is really hard to read in our current era without immediately drawing the comparison to a school shooting.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't. Obviously, that was not the intention. This book was written in 1974, but I mean, the amount of not even maybe just a school shooting, it happens at a prom, but just like mass shootings in general, Carrie is out for revenge. People,
explicitly.
I had done some reading beforehand. A lot of mass shooters, it's not sort of it's way more planned than what Carrie does, but I think still there's this comparison to be drawn. Also, she is maybe, like, actually the devil. It seems like I don't think so, but there's, like, some sort of, like, either her mind has just been so warped by her mother, or this, like, telekinesis power really is some sort of gift from God or from the devil. Stephen King will later refer to these concepts in other books, especially The Dark Tower, as the black and the white. This is Carrie is, funnily enough, one of the only books that The Dark Tower sort of doesn't touch or is not involved with that whole thing. It gets mentioned as being like, oh yeah, the Stephen King book Carrie, but this sort of exists in its own world. So I'm not sure if we're supposed to think of, like, the mother's devout religious fanaticism as coming from any place of truth, or just the ravings of a madwoman. It is ambiguous, but I don't think,
I sort of interpret it, like, especially when, like, from Carrie's internal, like, thoughts about how she thinks about them or feels about them, like, her mom's outlook of, God and the devil and religion is, like, the only framework she has to think about this thing, and so it sort of makes sense that, like, she would think about them in this way.
I agree. I do think that is what is going on. So this was also book-wise. I can't speak to if this is the first one of these kinds of books. Jeff Vandermeer, he is an author. He wrote that Annihilation, if you've ever heard of or read that, the Southern Reach series. He has said this, and, I haven't traced my experience with horror fiction sort of starts and stops at King. I have not really, it's not really my bag, horror fiction. I just am a Stephen King fan. But he claims, and this feels right to say, that pre-Carrie, a lot of, like, horror fiction, occult fiction was still in, like, the sort of Lovecraftian mode. The horror is unspeakable and subliminal.
Thing.
Yeah. Unspeakable and, like, subliminal, and doesn't really affect characters outright, like, affects their motivations in weird ways. And Stephen King brought that literature literally, like, screaming and covered in blood. They're like, no, it doesn't have to just be that. It can be this. You can, like, be unbelievably violent and grotesque and just totally in your face. And I think there's something to that. I don't think it's less important or anything. It's just, it feels more natural. The characters are not. Nobody in this book is like some demon beast from another world. I mean, she has like a magical power, but it's sort of, the whole thing's like a metaphor for like teenage angst and what have you.
Right. And I think like that empathy, like making it character focused, like the supernatural part of it is almost incidental, because like what she's going through, like the human thing and the abuse and the bullying and just like how the town feels about it, like that's really the focal point. I was thinking about, the Stephen King famously hated the movie version of The Shining, the Stanley Kubrick version.
Yes, he does.
Because I think almost explicitly because Stanley Kubrick took so much of the humanity out of it. I've never read The Shining, but like I've read about the adaptation because I like the movie a lot. And so I see how if you took away the soul of like a book like that, Stephen King would be mad. Because I think that's also part of like, that's an important part of this book, and it doesn't work without that part.
Yeah, no, I think King gets a lot in later books. He is a very in-your-face author. I think where Stephen King's sort of mastery of literary skill comes in is not necessarily in a book like Carrie or even The Shining or Salem's Lot. I think it comes later. I think it comes in his reflections of himself as an author, found in the final Dark Tower novel, for instance. I think that he likes a violent book, and I think this is his treading. It's funny to me that this is the first book and Salem's Lot is the second book, because Salem's Lot is a lot more violent than this, but in the same way. Vampires, blood, like obviously it's something that he is interested in. Somebody dealing with like fighting the supernatural. I think that it's fun for this to be the first book. I don't think this book is as good as those other books. Like I said, this is not where Stephen King comes into his own. That is Salem's Lot, I think. Sure. You just see a lot of the beginnings of the person who would one day become, everybody knows who Stephen King is. Like, still, I think.
Yeah. And you just said, like, a lot of his writing or things are, like, very in your face. And I think this is, part of what I bounced off of, I think, on a certain level, was the parts of this book that were very, like, in your face. Like, the things with the mom, like, oh, I get it. Like, it sort of feels like you're just abusing this poor girl to elicit more pity, but like I already pity her.
Right.
That sort of stuff. Or like, I don't know, building up prom night and then having prom night be the whole second half of the book, and then having it be like stuff happens and then it bounces away from Carrie and we read about what happens, but then it bounces back to Carrie and it shows her doing what we just read that she did, and that felt very repetitive to me, and like, oh my god, I get it, we've already seen this.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I mean, it's fair to, if you are already sort of not interested in like Carrie's motivation and you're just reading it for like a yarn to be spun, I do think it's repetitive. I think the move to have it move away from Carrie right before the blood gets dumped on her, to then explain the entirety of what happens during prom night from other characters' perspectives, is interesting, especially when we return to Carrie. At least me as a reader, suddenly I lose empathy for these people, even though like I think it's a fun move to gain the empathy by like listening to the people. I forget her name, but one of the survivors of the incident, we get like her account of what happened, and you're like, oh my god, that's awful that happened. And then when we're right back in Carrie, we're like, yeah, like fuck these people up, like they deserve it, they hurt you. And I think it's fun to be able to have both of those things be true.
And I think it's an interesting, like, I think I theoretically like the move, but I think for me it didn't really stick the landing for me. I think it got a little too into it or something, because then it was like, here's one section from one point of view character, and then the next section it's 5 minutes before the previous one. Like, I think it got a little too like granular, maybe. Where granular in like the plot details of like who's where in the town and what's happening. And we said this before, like, she doesn't just kill a bunch of people, she like destroys the whole town. I can describe the details of this. She like sets the sprinklers off in the gym, locks the doors, makes all the electricity explode so that like people get electrocuted because they're covered in water, and then she like goes through she like leaves the school and is like, wait, they need more, and then she like blows up she like starts a bunch of fires, and then there's like gas tanks that are by the school.
Hang on, I don't think we said this. She like practices using telekinesis a bunch, so it's not just her. When she gets emotional, she can do it whenever she wants now.
Yes, and I think the key is there's some moments where like she leaves and then comes back and decides to do the revenge. It's not like it happens right there. Which I thought was pretty interesting. Like, she almost is like, I got bullied again. Oh my gosh, why does it keep happening to me? And she goes, wait, I can show these people a thing or two. And then she like kills them all.
I think, just one more thing to interrupt. I think it's important to carry. The book also takes she gets the blood dumped on her and she gets laughed at.
Yes.
That's an important part. Was she gets laughed at. We get the perspective from those who were laughing. And it's sort of a character describes it as the only two options is that moment where to like scream and bawl your eyes out or just start laughing. And since Carrie has always been the butt of the joke, even though she was just about to re-enter humanity, the only thing anybody could do in that moment is laugh. And so Carrie is not necessarily being laughed at. She's not necessarily the butt of some cruel joke. The whole school didn't plan the blood bucket thing to happen to her. But the way she interprets that is that they are all like laughing and pointing at her. And like somebody does trip her and some people are pointing. But that's not what everybody is feeling. So you get the sense that if she didn't, explode the whole town, maybe everything would have been fine. But she can't do that.
Yeah. I'd be interested, like, because that is important, that, like, she does get laughed at, and I don't know if I completely bought that as, like, the only reason is to, like, be horrified or to laugh, and then everyone decides to laugh. I think, like we said before, I think King is interested in these, like, base human impulses. Like you were saying, like the gym teacher being, like, getting really angry at her, even though she was trying to be empathetic. I'm wondering what you think of that moment. Because that's another thing that I don't think really connected with me as, like, a tragic thing. It sort of was like, oh, they need to laugh for the book to happen, almost. I guess maybe it's my, like, lack of knowledge of the human experience, or like
I mean, like something this like that, is I think this is super relatable. Like, I've never been at the prom where a girl gets a bunch of blood dumped on her, but I get the impulse. I have been in situations where the only two options are to cry or laugh about something, and it's the same impulse somebody had, like one would have, and I have this constantly. Is I'm the guy, not to quote the Bare Naked Ladies, but I'm the guy who laughs at a funeral. I laugh at funerals and, like, videos of, bad things happening, because it's the first, like, the impulse is like, oh my God, my brain can't process this. I'm going to process it in the way I process a lot of things, which is to, like, find the humor in it. And I think that's just what these kids are doing in this moment. And I think it's super relatable when the gym teacher does it, because, like, I mean, objectively, what happens is sort of funny. The guy also got hit on the head with a bucket. It probably went like
right. It made like a thunk sound.
Yeah, yeah. And they don't know it's blood right away. When they realize it's blood, there's like a horrific shriek. But it's like, oh man, poor Carrie. Like, can you believe this is how? Of course, it would happen to Carrie. I get the impulse to laugh, and I think this book deals a lot with characters, especially Sue and the gym teacher, dealing with the fact that they are hypocrites.
And complicit, yeah, like the town being complicit in that. Yeah.
Miss Desjardins, the gym teacher, is so upset with herself, especially by the end of the book, she literally says, if I have to teach another day, I think I'm going to kill myself. And she is so upset with herself for smacking Carrie when she was having her period, and then later, I think, for laughing when the blood thing happened. And Sue feels so guilty she not only feels guilty for bullying Carrie in the shower, she feels guilty, like she can't admit to herself the real reason why. It's not just so like Carrie has a good time at the prom, it's so she can be absolved of everything. And Chris even calls her out on it. She's like, this is not why you're doing this for you, it's selfish.
And that none of this would have happened if Sue hadn't asked Tommy to go to the prom. Like Carrie would have just stayed home and everything would have been fine and normal.
Yeah, there's a moment later where Sue even like sort of admits that. She's like, I don't really think about Tommy. I can't think about that anymore. There's like an interview with her far in the future, and she's like remarried and has a kid, I think, and she's like, no, that's like a dark blip. I can't think about that. So anyway, that was a long tangent. What does Carrie do to the town? Sorry.
Right. Oh, so she like destroys it.
Yes.
She like starts fires. There's like gas tanks by the high school for some reason. I think it's like for heat or something. They explode and the whole high school is totally leveled with all these people locked inside, and a bunch of fires start. And the key thing to know is this is a very small town, and I think that's another key element of this where, you know, the first part of this book I was like, yo, where's CPS at? With Carrie
They're not
and her
fucking
mom,
in Chamberlain, Maine.
No, apparently not, because it's a town of like 1,000 people or whatever. But then she starts all these fires and starts going to other buildings, and she critically opens all the fire hydrants so that the fire trucks that come don't have any way to put out the fires, and that's really what literally burns down the whole town except for like certain parts of it. And so the whole town is leveled. She goes to confront her mom. Her mom like stabs her, but she gives her mom a psychic heart attack. And at the end, I thought this was very good. Sue like finds what happens, follows Carrie's like blood trail from her front door, and like Carrie finds Carrie, and Carrie like grabs onto her mentally, and Sue like feels her die in her mind. I thought that was extremely good.
Yeah, it is good stuff. I liked the revenge on Chris and Billy. I like too. It's just so simple. Billy loves his car. Everything's about his car and how cool he is with his car, and she the only thing Billy really has control of in his life is this car, and in the last instance of his life, control of his car is taken away from him, and that's how he dies. I think that's very very apropos. That's classic stuff. But yeah, Sue like telecommunes with because like everybody knows Carrie White did this because she's sending out like telekinetic signals that everybody's thinking like Carrie. People are being interviewed by the White Commission, and they're like, how did you know that Carrie White is the one who did this? And they're like, I just know. And the people who were outside of town, like the sheriff was one town over helping, because it's just like a collection of small towns in, you know, somewhere in Maine. The sheriff was one town over doing sheriff business. And so when he gets back, it's post the telekinetic signal getting sent out. So he's like, how do you all know it's Carrie? Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you just have to believe us. It's Carrie White. It's Carrie White. But in this moment, she's bleeding out. She gets a butcher knife, like, to the hilt driven into her shoulder. She dies while Sue is holding her. And that's how the book ends. Before the part 3, we get some final, you know, snippets. Part 3, wreckage. Some final snippets before the book ends properly. But I think it's a good, satisfying ending. I think it's very sad to make. I think Carrie's very sympathetic. I think she is. I love the use of the parenthetical statement in this book as a signifier for an intrusive thought. It's happening
Oh,
constantly.
I see. I hated that.
Oh, really? I love it.
I did not like that at all.
There's bits, a character will be talking and it'll be interrupted with a thought to like explain what's going on or maybe contradict what's going on. And I think in a book all about contradictions and all about hiding how you really feel about stuff, I think it's very effective. Also a book where like internally you're doing telekinesis, telecommunicating internal thoughts to the reader via parentheticals is a fun move in a book like this. As far as I am aware, that he literally never does that ever again.
And I think thinking about it and talking with you about it, it seems like I think the content is great and compelling, and I think it's a lot of the stylistic stuff that didn't work for me, and that's why I bounced off certain parts of it. And I really think it's just the stylistic parts, because the character and how everything happens and the questions it's asking, I sort of wish it spent maybe a little bit more time on the questions of class, or the town, how complicit a town is in its whole thing, in this whole thing. But I mean, the book is what it is. So
yeah, did Chamberlain Maine kill Carrie White? I don't know.
I told this to my partner while I was reading. I'm like, I think the real horror is bullying.
I do think that might be the point of the novel. The very subtle message of the book that bullying is bad, actually.
Oh, we have to talk about the how they get the pig's blood. I was under the impression they got it from a butcher shop.
A normal place.
The way you do. There's a whole side plot where the greaser Tommy, right? Tommy and his friends.
I'm pretty sure they're all it's like a group of greasers,
who are in college, dating these high school girls.
Yeah. Classic bully
just
bad
horned
guy
up over these high school girls. They'll be I'll go slaughter some pigs. They go to a farmer who's out of town because his mom died or something, and they kill 2 pigs and slit their throats and fill their buckets with blood.
Yeah, it is fucked up. And Billy, the head greaser, won't tell them what for, so these dudes just do this.
They'll just do it.
And they get their fingerprints all over the buckets, and Billy makes sure his fingerprints aren't on the buckets, and Chris is like, oh my god, what if they find our fingerprints? And he's like, they're not going to find my fingerprints,
the school exploded.
Yeah.
The school exploded. They're not finding those buckets.
Yeah, they're a fucked up duo. I love that part. That's scary. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, and then the bully, Chris Hargenson's dad's a lawyer.
I love that part too. He tries to entrap the principal, and the principal's like, well, we're just going to sue you for making the environment in which Carrie White can get bullied. And he's like, no, you would not do that. And then he leaves, and that's why, partly because the lawyer dad is not able to resolve the prom situation is sort of why Chamberlain Maine is destroyed. But, maybe it's for the best that Chris Hargensen didn't go to prom, because I think I don't know if you deserve to be psychically killed for dumping buckets of pig's blood on a girl's head, but I think there needs to be repercussions. I do think so.
Wow.
I know.
You're such a lib.
I know. Oh, and Tommy, objectively the only 100% good, kind person in the book, is killed via a bucket of blood dropping on his head. And technically he doesn't die. He dies when the building explodes, obviously, but it's just so sad.
Knocked out by a bucket.
God damn it.
He was, because he was Sue Snell's boyfriend who took Carrie, and the whole prom, he's very nice, and Carrie does a joke, and she's like, I did a joke, and some people laugh, and she's like, oh, this might be okay.
She's
it
funny.
Sort of seems
I was like, God,
she's
Carrie's
doing
super
a good
charismatic.
job. Yeah.
How is this even possible? She is doing a really
That was
good
another
job.
thing. It was a little, I don't know, a little begged believability where it's hard for me to know, because I'm not a high school girl, and I know it's whatever, but in the beginning, also know she's being viewed from outside, but like in the beginning, she's like such like a little mouse with no personality and everything, that all of a sudden, I guess maybe not all of a sudden, but like all of a sudden she has like social skills and social graces that people like her. It's a little less believable to me. I understand it has to happen, but like it sort of felt like it happened so that it can then be taken away from her for plot reasons.
I mean, I think the only reason she wasn't like that is because of how close she was mentally with her mother, and right before she leaves for prom, she severs that connection for good. And I think like it,
and the development of her powers, like that's also a metaphor of like the more she gets better at the psychokinetic powers, the more she feels like she has some sort of confidence in the world. So like I guess I understand it, but I think reading it, that sort of felt.
But even then, I mean, she does say one thing and it like doesn't go over well, and she like almost starts crying. She like breaks a pencil and she's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I fucked." And that's real as hell. Like, I mean, I
broke a pencil, they'll hate me.
I think I mean, that's so relatable. I love the image of Carrie smiling through the door as she is covered in blood and like making the sprinklers activate on the electrical like amps and stuff and killing everybody. I think Carrie's heel turn is very that's the scary part, I think, is the deaths of 49 children. But this book is not horror in the sense that like The Shining or Salem's Lot is a horror novel. Even the violence, I mean, I think I've said this before on the show, Salem's Lot contains one of the most upsetting things I have ever been forced to imagine in any sort of media ever. It's just it's like one 2-page scene.
Read it at some point.
Oh yeah. Just one 2-page scene has stuck with me for so long. I literally like had to put it down and just like put my head in my hands, and I was like, oh my fuck, Jesus Christ. It's wild to me that, Stephen King, the question is always like, how could Stephen King come up with this kind of this stuff? Is he so messed up? And he's like, no.
Is he on drugs?
I mean, there are a few things, we don't have to get into it now, like that he brings up, but he also maintains like, no, I just like being scared. I think it's cool. Oh yeah, no, it is cool.
Or like that's always leveled at people who like don't have a creative bone in their body, because it's like, yeah, it's fun to do crazy shit. Like it doesn't mean you actually want it to happen. Or
it's also far easier to do this kind of stuff in a book. Like I know. I don't mean Carrie. Carrie is a very famous award-winning movie, but like, there's some horrific stuff in Stephen King. A famously horrific event in it that is not in the movie, because obviously it can't be in the movie, is in the book, because things on the page, it's much easier to write horrible stuff on the page because you can imagine it in whatever way you want to, versus it being like on a film screen.
And there's no production value. It's just what you type. You're like, and then this happened. You know, like it's physically very easy. Do you want to? Yeah, you want to come up with something horrible? Just say that it
something
happened.
Horrible. Yeah, yeah. It's very. I mean, speaking on that, it's very blunt. I think Stephen King in. Like what Jeff Vandermeer says about him ripping horror fiction out of Lovecraft's hands, I think Stephen King is very blunt with the scary bits. It's just like, and then his throat exploded and goo went everywhere, and you're like, whoa! And then he tries to explore sexual violence a little bit in this novel with Bobby and Chris, especially at the end, towards the end of their relationship. There's like an almost rape scene that turns into like a consensual sex scene, but is it really consensual because this big giant scary man holds all the power in this relationship? And also he's 19 and she's like 16. It's
now, is this, there's also like the, it's like teenage sexuality being a part of horror,
Yeah.
Is this feels like a very early instance of that. Like, I think this is pre all like the slasher movies, right?
Oh, it certainly
where it's
is.
like
this is 1974.
Teenagers having sex and they get killed.
Yeah, I don't. That connection's
always been interesting to me in just like why that connection works, or is like feels somehow, I don't know if it's just because that's the only thing that exists, but like feels somehow universal, or like I wonder if it's like, this is a total tangent, like, you know, sexual experiences, like a human being's first sexual experiences can be very like scary and off-putting, and like there's a lot of potential for trauma, and like you almost always remember it for the rest of your life, and tying that somehow in the human soul with like getting murdered brutally or like having something horrible happen to you is, I think, very interesting.
Yeah, I think
and this sort of feels like part of that, even though, like, I mean, I guess Carrie is the slasher, but she's not like killing people because they're having sex, you know?
Right. No. And she's not, you know, she might think she is, but she's not, you know, Jason is literally a supernatural deity.
Yeah.
She's not that. She's just a normal girl who is just driven to the edge by her home life and her school life. I think he based Carrie off of two different students, like he actually knew at time at the school. One had like an insane fundamentalist religious mom, and the other I don't remember what the other is, but there's two bits he like smashed together and was like, oh, what if this person had the worst life ever and it ended in the worst? What if this person was one person and they had the ability to destroy the entire world? There's a really good interview in one of the interstitial parts where the person asks the White Committee, they're like, what happens to the world? Like, if more than one person has this power, what happens to the world? And I think leaving that question ambiguous, there's no Carrie 2. I mean, there's even there's a sequel to The Shining. There's no sequel to fucking Carrie. I think that's super interesting. It's fun.
Yeah, there's not like there's not a Carrie 2 where there's the whole army of Carries and the government is breeding Carries in the secret base, and you know.
Right. Yeah, and it's not the only other the magical power that is referenced, this is unrelated, the magical power referenced in other Stephen King works will be, I'm sure we will read it, will be the power of the Shining and not telekinesis. But it's fun to see him exploring, like, I love the idea. I think why I find Stephen King's horror so effective is because it's like, what if fucking vampires were in Maine? It's like, it's not like vampires in a big scary castle. It's like, what if a vampire owned a furniture store, and every time he went into that furniture store, he was like the creepiest furniture salesman of all time? And it's like, yeah, that's really cool. What if there was a scary clown in this small town, and he was a demon from another world? I think that stuff is so fun, and I think it works a lot better for me than books that are like, I recall enjoying I Am Legend, but I'm not, you know, I thought Carrie is much scarier. I Am Legend is not scary, but I think Carrie is a much scarier book than I Am Legend, because it's like, holy shit, what if tomorrow I went to work and a coworker of mine was like, hey, check this out, and was like throwing knives across the room with his mind? It's like, oh shit.
And it's scarier from like the social commentary aspect of like, who are we leaving in between the cracks to let this sort of thing happen to, and like, what is the cost of us, you know, feeling those base human desires to like laugh when we should cry or help, or like be angry when we should want to feel empathy, you know? Not what if there were vampires? Yeah.
What if, I mean, the only thing, not to dunk on Richard Matheson, I think Richard Matheson is a fine writer, but the only thing I really remember from I Am Legend is, why doesn't that dude just masturbate? Like, I think about that all the time.
Think about that. He was so horny the whole time. He was so horny, he forgot what time it was and almost died.
I think about it constantly.
And that's almost, I mean, I think this book is a little longer, but they're sort of the same length almost.
Yeah. No, this is Carrie, I don't know if we said this. Carrie is short.
It's short.
Yeah.
My version is like almost 300 pages, but the font is huge.
Yeah, it's seriously like, I don't know, a lot of Stephen King books are printed like this. The font is ginormous. I don't know why that is, but
I think it's probably because old people read them, and so they need to be able to see it.
Probably. I can't imagine my grandma reading Carrie, though. Maybe she did. I don't know.
Just in the nursing home? Oh, my God.
Did you know what they did to that girl at prom? Yes, Grandma.
She thinks it's real? Why haven't I heard about this?
Oh, man.
Now that is something there, having an old person read like a horror novel and then think that's something that's
well, there's literally
happened.
newspaper clippings. Like, she would like, oh my God, I've never read this.
Yeah,
White
right.
Commission. What is that? All right, let me see.
I think no better. I'm on the Goodreads page for Carrie. Like the little cover is on there. I think there's no greater endorsement of this book than what's said on the cover of the Goodreads image, and it says, "Great book, great price."
I know.
So if anything, this book has a great price, folks.
Yeah, so let's there's not really
I think all in all, despite my maybe it's too big to call them quibbles, my criticisms, I shall say.
Yeah.
There's a lot to like about this. I think I liked it in theory. I think the application, just because of how Stephen King wrote it, I think rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
In certain spots, but I think that is purely a me thing, clearly.
And Stephen King becomes a better writer, I think.
Sure.
And then I think he becomes a worse writer, and then I think he becomes a better writer again.
He just puts out so much that it feels like you can't say.
There's
one
literally a
thing
book
about
coming out in
everything,
a month. May 25th, I think, is when the next
That's
Stephen
crazy.
King book
Isn't
comes
he
out.
like 97 or
This
whatever?
book is 51 years old.
That's crazy, and he's still putting shit out.
Yes.
How old is Stephen King?
He's up there.
77.
He is up there.
Wow. And he still lives in Maine, as far as I know. Hey, I've been to Maine. Maine is great. I love Maine.
Really, I've never been to Maine. I would like to go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think
Maine is great.
I don't know. I didn't find anything
funny. There's a bunch of people who didn't get it. They're like, there's so much fat shaming in this book. I'm like, that's the bullies who are bullying her? I don't really know.
Yeah, they're like, the bullying in this book is bullying. Yes. Yes. Also, this is insane. I understand it was written in the 70s, but just know the story idea itself is super cool, and I love the musical. What? What?
I was on the Wikipedia page. Apparently, there's a musical adaptation.
I had no idea.
Of Carrie. I'm Carrie, and I can move things with my mind. I think that's how it goes.
Oh, you can watch the full thing on YouTube. Is this like high school? Looks like Cabaret.
It seems like something Broadway would do now as like a cash grab.
It does. I mean, of all the ones to make a musical, I feel like Carrie, it's like you could use the same set as Mean Girls, like rooms and like a bedroom.
It is just Mean Girls with blood.
It's Meaner Girls, I think.
Oh.
Can you imagine if Rachel McAdams was dumping
tagline.
blood onto Lindsay Lohan? I don't think so. Or what's her face?
And now I do have to say something.
Yeah.
There's I understand this book is about teenage sexuality. There are a couple times where I don't think we have to be talking about the teenagers' boobs as much.
I mean,
Steven.
I don't think. Yeah, you are not. I'm not going to sit here.
I know I'm not the
defend,
only one to say that.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and
defend. It was sort of funny.
Carrie boobed boobily in her new dress. I sort of didn't bring that up because maybe we should have. I feel like everybody knows that and is not okay with that.
Right. And I feel like it's not like there was like twice where I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I think it's
like description of woman and it's like her perky breasts.
Yeah. The
like,
first
right,
time I think it is when she makes her dress. I'm like, am I supposed to want to fuck this 16-year-old? Like, I don't. Like, I don't know what to tell you, Steve. I just don't. I don't, I think Stephen King, he's very interested in the experience of women. He will forever be a man born in what's 77 years ago?
40, 1940, whatever.
Yeah.
50. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I have not read a Stephen King book published after like 2013, so maybe it's better, but I would doubt it.
And I think that's sort of why he gets a pass, like, because you can so tell, especially with Carrie, like, this is written from a place of empathy, from like a genuine interest in the experience of like women and high school girls, and like, he's not like a bad guy. It's just sometimes he writes too much about boobs.
Yeah. Yes, he does.
I think he thinks women think more about boobs than they do. They're more relevant than they are in descriptions of people.
Yeah, that he also, and people try to be like, well, you're supposed to be made uncomfortable. It's a horror novel. I don't really know about that one. I don't know about that one.
Authors, I
don't know about that one.
I think he has a boob-shaped blind spot, and that's, you can take it or leave it, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't think his, I think he has misogynistic tendencies. Some people say it like, refer to it like his hidden misogyny is revealed in his writing. I don't know if that's
true.
That's the objective. I think, like you said, I think Carrie is a really good example. Like, oh man, this guy so obviously cares, but Jesus Christ, Grandpa, you pervert. You scary pervert.
And it's not that. It's not that.
No, it's no.
Crazy,
no, it's not that. No.
He doesn't go on and on. There's just a couple sentences.
Yeah. But, I mean, King, every Stephen King villain is, like, fat. That is just a thing. The fat phobia is all over Stephen King's works. I think there's also a lot of, like, weird... There's, like, a character introduced in the last bit of this book. His name is George Dawson. And, like, the first 3 sentences out of his mouth are, like, insane racial stereotype jokes. And I was like, what the hell, George? I'm glad you die. But it's, like, supposed to be like, look how funny everybody is. Look how chill Carrie's new gang is. And it's like, I think I want George Dawson to be electrocuted with a microphone, I think is what I want to happen to him. But that's just something, I think that is a trope that King, I don't know if he invented, but certainly, like, or, big fat scary orc monster. You're like, oh, what if there was just like a big fat scary person? And that's a lot of Stephen King villains, unfortunately. Except for a few notable exceptions, but King very often writes in big stereotypes, and that does not... I haven't, like I said, read any recent Stephen King books, but I can't imagine in a 77-year-old guy's brain. He gets on Twitter, or I guess not anymore, famously, but he was on Twitter for the longest time being like, this administration is terrible, like, Elon Musk, you suck, and then he'll be like, her fat boobies were bouncing all over the... I was like, all right. I mean, that is what a lot of the 1-star reviews
He's
are
famously
about,
married, so you can't really
forever.
be like,
since like the 70s.
Yeah.
A lot of the 1-star reviews mention like I don't like the the boob stuff.
And I think in this book it's particularly like
they're high school students.
So. They're high school students, and it's harder to parse because it's like also partially about teenage sexuality.
And
it's
from the point of view of these characters.
Right, exactly.
Like when the evil bad guy murderer rapist is being lecherous, you're supposed to be like, oh, this guy is being lecherous. But then when the same sort of like verbiage is applied in not that context, you're like, okay, but why are the same words here?
The objective narrator is like, the whistle dangled between her perky breasts. And you're like, what, Steven?
Yeah.
Steven! That being said, like just we were saying before, I don't think it's some like his hidden misogyny is coming. I think he's just an old guy. He's just an old weird guy.
Yeah, Carrie. This is another good example. She is described as bovine-like. Like she is not lovable because she is fat, and suddenly when she puts on the sexy dress, she is lovable. Like that's not great. There's no defending that.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, that's Carrie.
But in general, an empathetic view of a difficult topic.
I think so. That's Carrie. I love this book. I think it is not nearly my favorite Stephen King book. And when I said perfect earlier, I meant like I love It's exactly the way we've disagreed on. I love the way the story is told. Some of the content maybe is not perfect, but I think the shape of this book, to me, is really, really good.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't think that, but I think I liked the content. I've said before that I have quote unquote read another Stephen King novel, 11/22/63, in high school, and I never finished it. So I'm going to blank slate it and say, this is my introduction to Stephen King.
I think we should read that because it is famously really good. 11/22/63. People like Stephen King sucked for a long time, and then 11/22/63 came out, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, he's back! He found something he cares about," and it's a love story.
I think I got like 3/4 of the way through, and then like I was in high school, so like I do like AP classes, and then I forgot. But then I watched like the series, and so I think I sort of remember.
Is that James Franco?
I got how it ended with James Franco, yeah. Which I thought ended up being pretty good. I know I'm sure there's people who didn't like it, but that was James Franco's I'm adapting books now phase.
Yes, yeah. Oh yeah.
He did Sound and the Fury.
He was in 127 Hours, right? But that's, I guess, not a book. That's a real thing that he adapting stuff phase that James Franco.
He adapted like fiction movies. There was like a couple years.
Did he make 11/22/63?
I don't know. I don't know if that was part of that. Oh, I can't find it.
Jesus Christ, James Franco. What a freak. What an insane legacy. What a freakazoid.
Literary movies?
Nice.
I don't know. I was definitely remember being an English major and everyone talking about how he was doing like English major books like Sound and the Fury, and I don't think any of them are very good, but
I didn't know he was in
English because he like got an English PhD or something.
Yes, I do.
Like a
master's.
I do believe.
Yeah, I believe that is true. Part of me wants to do Stephen King in order, but that seems insane.
Yeah.
Like as we just slowly chip away, it would be so slow. But
because we're not going to read them all in a row. We could do a
unit,
or we just like do it in order. The ones we want to read in order.
Because I would love to do the Dark Tower eventually. I don't think the Dark Tower hits as much. The Dark Tower was written for people who read every Stephen King novel. Not just like referentially, but the whole thing ends up being sort of a meta commentary on Stephen King as an author. And I think you miss a lot of that stuff if you didn't read the 53 preceding novels. But I didn't read all 53. I've read a bunch, but certainly not all 53. And I felt like I got all the same stuff. So maybe I'll just pick out some ones that will slowly chip away at. I think Salem's Lot should be the next one.
I would agree. I'd like to do Salem's Lot. I like to do The Shining. I'd like to do Pet Sematary. Is Christine good?
Yeah.
I know the John Carpenter movie seems really fun.
Yeah, Christine.
That's the one with the car, right?
Yes, that's the one with the car. We could do It, especially if we're doing Dark Tower stuff. You got to do It, and if the goal is to do the Dark Tower, we have to do The Stand. We have to do The Stand.
Yeah, that's fine.
But that's not going to be our next book. We are abandoning Stephen King. He can go back to his main vacation home. The next book we're going to do is a book called Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Isaacson. Is that right? Did I just pull that out of my ass? Not even close. Walter M. Miller. Close, sort of.
Now, listener, if that sounds like something crazy and that you've never heard of, you wouldn't be the first, because neither of us had heard about it either. It seems like maybe it's becoming a little more famous. I think if probably hardcore science fiction people know about it, but I'd never heard of this book.
I bought this book a long time ago because I thought the back was funny, and I never read it. And then my partner read it, and she said, this book is not funny at all. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. And so I said, oh my God. So we're going to do that. And she will be a special guest on the next Hardcover Hooligans episode, bringing her literary insights from the time she spent reading Canticle for Leibowitz in the sun on our porch. We'll be
talking over her the whole time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I get brain poisoned by books I read on the porch because I really enjoy them, and then I read them inside and I don't enjoy them as much. So
Maybe you just like.
I think I like being
reading.
outside.
Maybe you just like being outside. What if this book sucks? What if this is a horrible book?
No,
she just liked it because she got to be outside.
Well, then I'll have to get divorced, and I'll let you all know how my divorce is going next week when she's not on the episode.
We'll have we'll live stream
my divorce.
your divorce over a book on the Hardcover Hooligans podcast, and then it'll be the most famous book podcast ever.
No, I should write a book about it, like a tell-all, like if I did it, like the OJ one, and then it's just called I divorced.
If I divorced over a book.
Yeah.
Parentheses, I did.
Yeah, I did. It was all my fault that I did. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. You can follow us
fun.
Yeah, Stephen King. It's fun to not agree on everything. It's been far too long.
It's fun to read a horror book. I can't tell you the last time I read something. I mean, quote unquote horror. We know Carrie isn't super horror. Like,
yeah,
you know, yeah.
You can follow us on Instagram at Hardcover Hooligans. I don't know why you would. We never post anything. But that's going to change.
Our numbers up, we'll be happy. And it is the higher our follower count, the more self-esteem we have. So
yeah, that's true. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, what? I'm sorry. I just saw a picture of a makeup kit called Dirty Pillows, and that's what Carrie's mom calls
What? I was going to bring that up earlier. Yeah, Carrie's mom is very sexually oppressed, and they keep calling their breasts dirty pillows, all a single word.
I just can't. I don't know if this
makeup
is real.
Kick.
It says it's Elf X Jennifer Coolidge. Hang on a minute.
What? Because that has to be a Carrie reference then, right?
Oh, certainly. Oh, that's real.
Huh.
Oh, Carrie.
You know, I'd say this. I think if Jennifer Coolidge lived in Chamberlain, Maine, none of this would have happened.
Yeah, if she, I just saw the Minecraft movie, and she's the principal of the school in that. And if she was the principal of you in high school or whatever, this would not have happened, and not Mr. Grail. But yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. And why don't you stay covered in blood at the prom?
Yeah, or go, if you're feeling bored, go to your local farm, slit some pigs' throats, and get some blood.
Yeah, what you should do is you should trick your greaser. We all know everybody listening to this podcast has a cohort of greaser buddies, and you and your greaser buddies should take
really
your swooped
mean
up
and
ride.
kind of obviously evil.
Can I just say I don't have I know how to drive stick. I do not have a manual car. I would love to be able to creep into somebody's property, kill the headlights and put it in neutral. That they do that in this book, and then they push the car going, and we just don't do that anymore.
I think you could do that in a Prius because they're
they're
silent
quiet.
They're under 10 miles an hour.
Yeah, but part of it's the clanking the shifter around, stomping on the transmission.
Greaser in a Prius.
Yeah, Greaser in a Prius, the newest Stephen King novel. There's not a 0% chance a greaser has driven a Prius in a Stephen King book. I don't know. I don't know if he's still. using
so
the
much
greaser
has
bully.
happened. You really can't discount anything.
All right, everybody, stay being the prom kings and queens. How about that? How about a positive one?
And always look up to make sure there aren't any big buckets.
And if you are gonna die, you really, don't get hit in the head with a metal bucket. That cannot. And then exploded by a.
And make a funny sound and everyone laughs, and then you're dead. That's just sad.